And you touched on the main titles. Like, talk about getting to that moment and finding how the main titles would sound.
Well, with Tim, it's always the same, whether it be Wednesday or any one of the many films I've done with him. It's a lot of experimenting. He has to hear stuff and be able to respond. And it's very seldom the first thing he hears is going to make him jump up and down and go, "We've got it, Eureka!" It's a process. And so there was weeks of just experimenting with different styles, different tonalities, getting heavier, getting faster, getting lighter. I had alternate melodies, different orchestration, and just getting him to finally soak it in and go, "Okay, yeah, I'm feeling this now." And, people think that Tim and I have a shorthand and that, after like whatever, 17, 18 films, it's like real easy. It's not. There is no shorthand. Every time I'm starting from scratch, every time I'm going to have to like really present a lot of ideas and pull him in by degrees into the musical world and to get a lot of input from him and trying this and trying that. It's quite a bit of experimenting on pretty much everything I've done with him. And that's how we work. We don't talk about it a lot going into it. He'll never say, "I'm looking for something that's like this, sounds like this, does this." He'll just go, "Here's how I feel about the character." And then I've got to just like come up with a lot of different ideas, and that takes time. So that's where, as Chris is saying, we had the luxury of this first month working on the first episode. That's the laboratory. It's what I call the laboratory time. That's where, as a composer, you're just mixing up concoctions, you're inventing, and many explosions and things that are just gonna, fall away. And then finally you get the magic formula, and you're off and running. But it's a process, and I love it, but it's a process. It's not no magic to it. Let me put it that way.
The other thing that was luxurious and unique about this is that normally in television, the director of a given episode, they're involved, but in my experience, they're not usually the ones involved in the scoring. Usually it's the showrunners. And in this case, they were still involved, but Tim was given a lot of deference, understandably. And so that created space and an environment where there was a lot more room of back and forth, of experimentation. And everyone got a chance to weigh in and did weigh in, but Tim was given a wider berth. And so it was, as far as Danny and Tim goes, it was just like they are when they're working on a film.
He wouldn't let anybody hear anything until he was on board. So we had to go through our little process and do our thing. And then finally, when he was like, "Okay, I think we're feeling good. Now I can present it to the showrunners and Netflix and, and everybody else." But he likes to be really, really tight in a tight little world with nobody else. And he's like that on movies too. Even studios, he won't involve a studio until he's like really happy and he's ready to present it. He will never play one note of music for any producer or anybody at a studio. He's just very much like, we do our thing first, and then we open it up, let the studio hear it, do a presentation. In this case, the showrunners and some of the producers. But, that was like after really many weeks of working first with him, because it's a very private, personal thing for him. Mm-hmm. And, he wants to feel it before he hears anybody give any other opinions about it. He wants to be on board. So I knew from when we started working, I said, "Okay, I don't think this is normally how it works," like Chris is saying, but this is Tim and I, and we go back 38 years now, and we'll do our thing unless somebody rings me up and goes, "You can't do that." And then I'll just figure it out if that happens, but that didn't.
Yeah, and in this case, that wasn't going to happen. They figured Tim and Danny have earned the pedigree that they have, and they weren't going to lead this astray, especially for something where it seems like such a natural marriage of the Addams Family, Wednesday Addams, dark, macabre, gothic, Tim Burton, Danny Elfman. I mean, there was a lot of trust given there.